Greetings, YouTube! The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And today we are going to review the spell Spellfire Flare from Forgotten Realms, Heroes of Faerun. So this is one of our last spells that we got to do. We only got a couple of more to review. This is a pretty good spell. I did put in the thumbnail whether this is the new Magic Missile, so we're going to compare this one to Magic Missile, plus a few other things that we have up our sleeves. So don't go anywhere and stay tuned. Before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like this video. Hit the like button if you have any questions or comments. Please leave a question or comment, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, and don't forget to share this video. All right, here we go. Spellfire Flare is a first level spell usable by sorcerers and wizards. It is a one action casting, has a range of 60 feet. It is only a verbal and somatic component. We saw with a lot of these spells from Forgotten Realms, Heroes of Faerun, that they did have a cost. This one is one of the rare ones that doesn't. And it is an evocation spell. It does require a ranged attack roll, which is good and bad, and it does radiant damage, which is good because there's very few things that are resistant or immune to radiant damage. So it says, you unleash a blast of brilliant fire. Make a ranged spell attack, and I already said that that has good things with it, and it has bad things with it. So make a ranged spell attack against a target within range. It doesn't say that you see. It just says a target within range. A target gains no benefit from half cover or 3/4 cover for this attack roll. On a hit, the target takes 2d10 radiant damage. And then you can use a higher spell slot. You can create an additional blast for each spell slot above 1. You can direct the blasts at the same target or different ones. Make a separate attack roll for each blast. So they don't get half cover. They don't get 3/4 cover. And you don't have to see them. Typically, these spells say that it will say, like, make a ranged spell attack against a target within range that you can see. So there's a couple of things to unpack here. You don't have to see them. And 3/4 cover usually means that they get a +5 bonus to their AC and dexterity. And it's like they're behind something that is giving them a lot of cover. You're really having a hard time seeing them. Total cover is no line of sight whatsoever at all. But it doesn't say anything about that. So they would benefit from total cover, which I would say would stop this spell from happening at all. And then half cover just gives a +2 to AC and dexterity saves. So, on average, this is going to do 11 points of damage if you cast it with a first level spell. So, what is the grade that we're going to give this? I'm going to give this a solid B. I do like this for the fact that it does a decent amount of damage. It does bypass, you don't have to see the target. So if they are not behind total cover and they're invisible, can I still hit the target? Because it doesn't say one way or the other. And I can upcast this for quite a bit of damage. Now, let's compare this to Magic Missile. All right, here's a Magic Missile spell. Magic Missile has a range of 120 feet. It is a first level spell, and it does 1d4 + 1. So on average, this does 3.5 points of damage versus 5.5. So the Spellfire Flare, that's hard to say 20 times in a row, that does 2 points on average more. There is no roll to hit with Magic Missile. It just hits. Each dart strikes your choice that you can see within range. So you do have to see them to be able to target them with this, but you don't roll to hit. You just do it. And then you create one more dart for each spell level above 1. So this has a longer range. It doesn't do as much damage, and it's not a roll to hit. But you do have to see the target. So there are pros and cons, I guess, to this. versus the Spellfire Flare. Now, one thing I do want to point out is now the Spellfire Flare, again, is usable by sorcerers and wizards. However, if you were to multi-class into a Warlock, you would have access to Hex. Place a curse on a creature you can see within range, so you do have to see the creature, but once it's on there, it's done. Until the spell ends, you deal an extra 1d6 necrotic damage to the target whenever you hit with an attack roll. That's important, an attack roll. So, and there are other ways to get Hex other than just taking levels of Warlock. You could get Hex through Magic Initiate. It is a concentration spell, so you do have to think about whether you want to use your concentration on this. But it is an extra d6, it's an extra 3.5 points of damage, which raises that the 2d10, that 11 points, now to 14.5 points. And if you did take levels of Warlock and you got Hexblade as your subclass, you get Hexblade's Curse, which does an additional damage against a cursed target. Now, you do have to use your bonus action for this, and you do have to use your bonus action for this. So it's going to take a little while to get this going. But once you get this going, you should, if you're a sorcerer or warlock, you should have a pretty high charisma. And this is probably going to be another 3 or 4 points of damage on top of what you're doing. Now, I know what you're asking. You're saying, Doc, what about Eldritch Blast? Okay. Eldritch Blast is a cantrip, and that does 1d10 points of damage. Now, there's a bunch of things that warlocks can layer on top of Eldritch Blast to make it better. They could boot Agonizing Blast, which does their charisma damage to it. So, on average, Eldritch Blast does 5.5 points of damage, and then that moves to 11 at 5th level. So, you could be doing 5.5 points of damage at, let's say, 3rd level. And then adding, if you got Agonizing Blast, adding 3 or 4 to the damage there. So on average, it's doing almost as much damage as Spellfire Flare. But this is automatic, and this is a cantrip, of course. If this were, and if you cast this spell versus Spellfire Flare actually is a little bit better. This is a ranged attack against one creature or object in range. Again, it doesn't say that you have to see them. It just says you have to be able to make a ranged spell attack. And they do get cover on this one. So I would contend that Spellfire Flare is just a hopped up version of Eldritch Blast. Does a little bit more damage. You can use higher spell slots right away for it. And they don't benefit from cover. But you do need to have levels in Warlock. And I think it would be really good if you did have levels of Warlock and Sorcerer for this. Here's Eldritch Blast here. Now, Eldritch Blast has a farther range, 120 feet. It is a cantrip. It does go off automatically. But I think that this spell is a little bit better. However, it does work off of spell slots, so eventually you're going to run out of those. So maybe you use this until you run out of those spell slots that you want to use, and then you switch over to Eldritch Blast. Unless, however, but if you have other things on top of the Eldritch Blast, like Repelling Blast, where you're going to push the target, if you want to push the target, then you may want to use Eldritch Blast instead. But I contend that a Sorcerer Warlock would benefit greatly from this spell. Wizards, not so much. All right, that is what I have for everybody today. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody later.